What is our responsibility as an agile practitioner? I always ask that question to myself because that responsibility can be different in different situations. Irrespective of whether you are an agile practitioner or any profession for that matter, one of the responsibility is to create value, to add value. But then you need to define what value really means. If you look at an agile practitioner, you might be a scrum master, you might be an agile coach, you might be a program manager with an agile background, or you might be an agile trainer. How do you define value? What is our responsibility with respect to that value? Now, if you're joining a company and the company wants you to do one specific thing, for example, you join a company where the company says that we want you to help a scrum team, then obviously your responsibility is to make sure that the team improves by using the Scrum framework. If the company uses Kanban, then obviously, if you're going there, you want the team to visualize their work, to identify flow, and help the team improve using the Kanban method. Maybe you are in a company where they are scaling and they want you to either do SAFe, which is scaled agile framework, or less, or disciplined agile, or any of those scaling frameworks. Then your responsibility obviously is to make sure that the company implements and there is value created through the implementation of these frameworks. But there is something else that is there which becomes part of your responsibility. It is to identify what exactly the team or the organization would need. Why I say that is sometimes the organizations would say we want disciplined agile. That's a framework that we want. Or we want SAFe, or we want Scrum, or we want Kanban. Maybe the organization has not gone through all those analysis to see if this is the right framework for them. Most of the time, organizations decide to go with a framework after they've done some analysis and some study of what their requirements are. Sometimes they've seen other organizations do this and they said, okay, maybe that's a framework we should use. But if you are a practitioner who goes into an organization, it becomes part of your responsibility to make sure that the decision that the organization has taken is the right one. There is always a flavor of these frameworks that get used in these organizations because the structure of the organization, the culture of the organization, the maturity of the agile teams within those organizations, the leadership commitment towards a change, the resistance to change. All these things are different with different organizations. The industry they are in, the kind of work they do, all these matters. Maybe initially you will start with a framework, you start working with it, you will start getting people trained and involved into that whole framework. And in that journey, you would find there are some teams or some groups which have a totally different way of working. And that's the time when you actually have to be open enough looking at value and looking at framework. And that's when you got to be agnostic. Your responsibility as an agile practitioner is not to push a framework, but to be agnostic from that perspective when you identify that there is a better way to create value and be more predictable. So I think always keeping an open mind. I've seen agile practitioners who are not ready to change. For example, they're fixed to one framework, they're fixed to one way of thinking, and they find it very difficult to change. The agile mindset by itself is all about change, adapting change. So, as agile practitioners, if we are not ready to change, then it is counter to what we talk to people. We say, You all need to change, but I'm not ready to change, which does not really work. So I think as agile practitioners, it is important for us to see if there are deep rooted ideas and thoughts within us that we are not ready to change. And we need to explore why. Because if we are not ready to change in our responsibility to bring change to an organization, we might we might fail.